Democracy is the most vile form of government. Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. James Madison. Good evening, everybody. Hell's Unicorn here once again. And it has recently come to my attention via a local seacoastonline.com article in a link to the Associated Press that the Maine Republican Party and the entire state of Maine, as it were, is considering moving from a caucus system back to a primary system. This would entail a number of changes to the state, not the least of which would be $1 million plus in switching around funding, which would involve basically taxpayer funding to change the system. And they cite the turbulent caucus results back in the winter, where Ron Paul and Mitt Romney were neck and neck, and Romney just barely edged him out, but there were all of these irregularities in the entire process. Nobody stops to think that maybe the problem wasn't the system itself, the caucus system, but rather the corrupt SOBs that were presiding over the party. Nah, we can't blame the people that are taking the kickbacks and the bribes. It must be the confusing system. Well, there's not really anything confusing about it if you actually do your research. The problem is that most of John Q. Public doesn't give a shit about research. Heck, even when there's a primary system, which is the easiest system in the world, all you have to do is drive a mile or two to your nearest polling station, press a few buttons, and walk out, maybe flash an ID. That's what they do in Pennsylvania, and we still had a shit-ass turnout here. My precinct, you want to know what the turnout in my precinct was, ladies and gentlemen? A scant 13%. What does that tell me about the voting public in this particular state and municipality? It tells me that they want a choice, but they don't want to be bothered with choosing their choices. In other words, the people that show up to vote don't want to think things through. They want something else or someone else to do the thinking for them. Hence, you have all of these brain-dead fools that you're constantly bumping into who get all of their information from that feeding tube that's attached from their cerebrums to their television sets. As far as I'm concerned, primary systems should be abolished nationwide, and every single state and municipality should be required to have a caucus system in place in order to have valid election results, especially for federal office. Those who show up at caucuses are better researched, they are prepared to argue their points in a public forum, and as a result, more informed choices are made. There is a lie that is pervasive in this country, and it consists in this. People believe that freedom rests solely in contrary choice, and that a person's awareness of additional choices or awareness of how these particular choices came about counts for little or nothing. I say in contrast to that your knowledge of your choices is what determines your actual freedom, not whether or not you have a choice or not. Because if you are ignorant enough, you might think that you have no choice. Indeed, your choice will be compelled by your ignorance. You might vote for Barack Obama because you believe that minorities in this country are oppressed, as though that is actually a reason to elect somebody to an office, as opposed to whether or not they actually know what they're doing or what their policy ideas are. That's not a choice. That's stupidity in action. And by the same token, voting for Mitt Romney because of his nice hair or his nice family, I guarantee you there's plenty of that. Ladies and gentlemen, my view on the matter is simple. There are two things that need to change with regards to our attitude regarding voting if we should be worthy to actually continue voting. Number one, we need to get the idea out of our head that everybody should be allowed to vote. Universal suffrage is a stupid idea. Uninformed people make bad choices, and those bad choices impact other people that didn't consent to those choices being made. Number two, we need to get the idea of voter anonymity out of our systems entirely. If you have no problem whatsoever making a choice that will determine a good amount of another person's situation, you should be prepared to do it with people looking over your shoulder, or even a video camera determining the results or chronicling the results so it can be reviewed by anybody. Information should be 100% free and available to everybody via internet feed, via radio, via television. You should be able to see every single vote tallied and who it was for. You should be allowed to view it at any time whatsoever. You do that, voter fraud becomes an impossibility. But no, people want to make choices and not be held accountable for them. That's what creates the welfare state. That's what creates the warfare state. That is the lifeblood of the state. It is not just simply the notion of wanting to take from others for yourself or forcing other people to do what you want them to do. It's a matter of reveling in your own ignorance. The state is easy. Statism is easy. Somebody else figures out your life for you. You simply go and push a few buttons once in a while. That's socialistic, democratic statism for you right there. And regardless to whether or not we elect Ron Paul or not, that should be the principal focus from here on out of this campaign. The defeat of universal unfettered democracy in favor of a more rational system where rational people make rational decisions and irrational people are left to their own devices, unable to harm others in the process. With prudence to myself and benevolence to all of you, good evening.